Hi everyone, it's Amy. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm thrilled to share a project that was a true labour of love. It's this red self-drafted embroidered blouse inspired by a Farm Rio design. This piece combines bold colour, intricate hand sewing and some fun machine stitches. I'll share how I did it so you can play with these techniques at home yourself. This video marks the beginning of Vlogmas. I'm going to be posting videos daily and I look forward to spending the festive season with all of you. We'll cover how to sew successful scallop stitches on a machine, how to add pleats to a sleeve, and I'll share tips for drafting or adapting an existing pattern so you can make a top just like this. So let's dive into the making of this blouse. Starting with my inspiration, this Farm Rio navy blue embroidered long sleeve blouse or top has a peplum style bodice, voluminous sleeves and ruffled front inserts. The navy fabric is soft and drapey, giving the blouse a relaxed yet very elegant silhouette. And the white floral embroidery adds texture. It really pops against the dark background, don't you think? The ruffled inserts are cleverly finished with white edging. The full sleeves have more embroidery, pleats and scallop stitches gathered into elastic cuffs with smocking details. I decided to draft something that had the ruffled inserts with contrast edging, where I could use my scallop machine stitch, and then add similar embroidered details using appliques. Plus, I really wanted to add the pleats if I could fit them in. Peplums aren't for me, so I kept my silhouette straight, perfect for wearing with jeans, and I wasn't brave enough to add any smocking to the sleeve cuffs, so I skipped that. Keep watching as I'll also share available sewing patterns that you could use as a base instead of drafting your own. I learnt the Aldrich method of pattern drafting many years ago. I also did an evening course run by Leeds Art College on additional drafting techniques, which gave me such an appreciation for sewing pattern drafters. So starting with a dartless sloper block, I split the front bodice to create the princess seams and slashed and spread a sleeve piece to increase its width. I was aiming for that kind of voluminous, romantic silhouette. I whipped up a quick toile with a thin rectangular ruffle and placed a few motifs on the front to get a feel for it. I used a polyester from my toile fabric pile and I was quite happy, but I decided the ruffle should be wider and the sleeves needed to be even bigger. I'd selected this rich red tencel twill from my stash, which was a Rainbow Fabrics purchase from quite a while ago. Its soft drape and subtle sheen made it the perfect canvas for the design. For the embellishments, I chose a lace applique that came on a roll from AliExpress. That allowed me to cut out the individual motifs to suit the design, and then you could just melt off or set any loose threads with a lighter. Learning from the toile, I created a ruffle that would be 5 centimetres wide when finished, and I hemmed it at both ends, and then this was trimmed with the contrast scallop stitch in white. This is my favourite detail of the blouse. To achieve the scallop effect, I used a special decorative satin stitch on my machine. A reminder, I've got the Janome QDC 4300. You need to stitch away from the raw edge about 1 centimetre in. And my top tip is to place tissue paper under the fabric for stability when sewing the decorative stitches. Then you rip the paper away and any paper in the stitching will eventually wash away. I've talked about tissue paper before, but I actually have 3 types in my stash. The Burda ones are perfect for this job, plain or gridded. Just rip off a thin strip that can support the fabric underneath as it's being stitched. The painful part is slowly and carefully trimming away the excess fabric around the scallop stitching once it's all done. If you cut into the stitching, it will unravel and cause you so much heartache. So careful trimming is the key. The rectangle, like I say, was hemmed at the short ends and then gathered into place, and the princess seam was then assembled. Each lace motif was positioned in an attractive randomized pattern on the bodice. Do you see how the appliques alternate in direction? This helped me with placement. I also cut out some individual leaves to help fill the gaps. I pinned everything in place with my trusty Merchant & Mills entomology pins. Then I wanted to hand sew each one individually in place using tiny prick stitches, which is a stitch almost on top of each other, and I used red thread to secure them. This meticulous process ensured a clean finish on the inside of the blouse as well, while still being very secure. This part took several hours, sat in my sewing room with the TV on, kind of therapeutic. And the sleeves were designed to be wide and dramatic, gathered into a narrow elastic cuff. I incorporated 3 rows of pleats in the end near the cuff. They're each 1 centimetre tall when finished. I did this by adding 6 centimetres of extra fabric to each sleeve. This was then absorbed into the pleats, bringing them back to the correct length when finished. Pleats can be added to any existing sleeve pattern by either sacrificing some of the sleeve length or slashing and spreading like I did to make the sleeve longer. To mark the pleat lines, you mark both the fold line and the stitching line and then transfer these to the right sides of the fabric, ensuring that you use something that will wash or brush out of the cloth. If you make cute narrow pin tucks using a pin tuck machine foot, it's usually only a few millimeters wide and you wouldn't need to extend the sleeve at all. That gives you a different kind of look. I wanted to add scallop stitching to my sleeves as well, so I played around with the position, and then in the end, to maintain the symmetry, I mirrored the direction of the scallop stitch rows on each sleeve, ensuring a balanced look. I considered adding an extra flower at the sleeve cap, but decided against it in the end. For the closure at the back, I added a bias-bound keyhole secured with a cute vintage white button from my stash. This subtle detail makes me so happy as I have a lot of one-off vintage buttons and I really love a chance to use them. Here's a sneak peek inside. Those prick stitches I mentioned create kind of a subtle texture but no visible stitch lines. And back to the finished blouse. I'm so pleased with how it turned out. The combination of the rich red fabric, the intricate lace details, and the voluminous sleeves create a piece that's both timeless and contemporary. Next, I'll share my suggestions for the commercial patterns and tutorials you could follow to adapt an existing pattern, plus some ideas if you don't have a scallop stitch on your sewing machine or don't know where to start with pleats and pin tucks. While I self-drafted, there are several patterns that you could use, though nothing identical. Here are my recommendations. McCall's 8096. There's a few paper patterns still out there, but it is out of print, so there's a PDF on sewdirect.com. This could be a really good starting point. You'd need to adapt or add a new sleeve, maybe ideally from another McCall's design for an easy fit into that bodice. Simplicity 8883 View E is another great match and just needs sleeves adding. McCall's 8008 has beautiful sleeves with pin tuck details and a sleeve head ruffle if you want something a bit more subtle and ruffly. I made this once before actually, it's a great little top. Simplicity 9469 would be a great base pattern. You can move the keyhole to the back and add the princess seams by splitting the front and adding seam allowance on either side. Simplicity 9605 could be used for a more peplum silhouette like the original, though again it needs sleeves from another pattern. McCall's 7977 or the Liberty Rosanna top, that could be a fun take on this style with a smaller lace yoke for less hand stitching. There's a peplum option too in that one. How about this linen ruffle tank tutorial or this ruffle shirt tutorial? And last but not least, I know there's some of you out there with no scallop stitch on your machine, or you are looking for a larger scallop. Maybe you could try this. Use a satin stitch to draw your own scallops I must warn you, that's not really for the faint of heart. You'll need to practice on scrap fabric till you really get your eye in, but that could be another great option. I hope you enjoyed this closer look at my blouse, and maybe you're inspired to play around with your scallop stitch on your machine. I'll be back again with another video soon. Thanks for watching.